All right, mate, how you doing? And welcome to this year's Premier League predictions for the season 2020-2021. Every year, the same thing happens, right? We get to about a week or 2 weeks before the season start. Everyone in the comments going, "Spen, when you doing your predictions? When you doing your predictions?" I do the same thing every year, guys. I wait until as soon as I can before the league starts to allow for all the transfer business to happen, lots of which still hasn't happened, to make my predictions. And yes, I know there's a lot of other YouTube creators that have already got their predictions out. Listen, they're just trying to get early. They're just trying to get the views. They're not thinking about the predictions. Trust me, right? You wouldn't place a bet on the lottery without knowing what numbers are going in the pot. You wouldn't go to the bingo. Okay, I didn't go to the bingo anyway, so I don't even know how bingo works. But you wouldn't go full stop unless you're 80. You got to get the information, people. There's still more information I'd like to have. But as I'm filming this, we've got like a couple days before the season starts, and I can't really afford to film it any later to get it turned around in time. So we're doing them now. But just in the last 24 hours, we've seen Ollie Watkins join Aston Villa, James Rodriguez join Everton, loads of deals, which could really quite dramatically change a team's finishing place in the table. So that's why we wait until the last minute possible. And then what you do is you gather all the information in, and then you just predict Sheffield United to come bottom and look like a mug. That's what I did last year. I'm sure we're going to make as equally a calamitous error this year as well. Speaking about last year, it was my worst year ever in terms of point scoring on the Premier League predictions table. Don't think I've forgotten about that. I'm coming up big this year. This is a comeback year for me. We're going to get a good result. Obviously, we're not going to get all 20 right, but I need to improve. I want my best year ever. Stay tuned in this video as well to find out a whole new way to place bets on football. Okay, I know it's not applicable to all of you, only those of you that are over 18 and can bet responsibly. But I've teamed up with Spreadex that for those of you who think you know your stuff, for me, this is the best way not only to bet on football and to interact with football bets, but also to make money, because it really comes back to how much you know. Not just whether you think X or Y will happen, but how right you are can mean you make more money. I'll explain more later in the video, but check out the links in the description for Spreadex and how to get involved in the best way to bet on football, in my opinion. Right, let's crack on. As usual, we're going to start off with the relegation places. Who have I got to finish bottom? Who have I got going down? And as you may or may not have expected, two of my bottom three clubs are from newly promoted teams. I've got West Brom finishing dead bottom, even though they nicked Dejan Garner off us, which I'm still annoyed about. Check out my West Ham video I made a few days ago talking about the situation there. I don't think the squad's strong enough. I like Slaven Bilic, but I think he could easily be sacked after a few months if it's not going to plan. Or they could stick with him and he could bring the club down. I don't know. And they could obviously stay up. This is my prediction. I've got to predict someone to go down, people. I'm going with West Boilers Albion, formerly known as West Bromwich Albion. In 19th, I've got Fulham. Obviously, they came up a few years ago, spent 100 million, didn't stay up. Now they're coming up. Different type of situation. They're not spending 100 mil. They've got Scotty Parker, who I'm a big fan of course, but I don't think their squad is Premier League quality. They could obviously make some changes. The window's going to close after the Premier League starts. They've got a bit more time to do stuff and maybe see how the first few games go. But I'll be surprised if Fulham stay up. Now, the 18th spot was tough. I'm not going to lie. It was between two claret and blue clubs. I've gone with Aston Villa, even though they've just bought in Ollie Watkins. Spent a fair bit of money on a Championship striker. We'll talk more about that when we do our transfer window review in a few weeks. But I think it's going to be a tough season again for Villa. And even though I think they could stay up, I think they're just going to drop down. They've kept Jack Grealish so far, which is fantastic. But I'm not sure they're going to have enough. Could be wrong. It's quite tight, these spaces. But I've gone with Villa. And the other claret and blue club, which I've got just avoiding relegation, but by far the lowest I've ever predicted them in a Premier League predictions, is my club, West Ham. I've finally come round to your guys' way of thinking. I'm no longer going to put West Ham in the top 10 until we actually prove we can do it again. And to be honest, I'm very pessimistic right now. Comes with the territory as a West Ham fan, usually a little bit pessimistic regardless, but I'm worried. I'm worried about whether Moyes is going to stay. And yes, I do want Moyes to stay. I think he's quite important to us in terms of relegation survival. I'm worried about if we're going to sell Declan Rice. He could easily go in the next few days or weeks. I don't know who we're going to bring in, if anyone. And I'm worried about the mood in the camp. Again, you've seen it in the West Ham video I made recently on the channel. The mood is not good with the fans, with some of the players, with the captain, Mark Noble. There's very little trust in the ownership right now. I have got us surviving, but I was more likely to predict us finishing 18th than I was higher than 17th. So let me know if you think I'm still being optimistic with West Ham this year. Obviously, we finished lockdown football really good. Antonio flying, got the player of the month for July. First ever player in the history of the Premier League to get player of the month for July. Reading between the lines. But he's an injury waiting to happen. And a lot of our good attacking players are. Yarmolenko, who I really like, injury waiting to happen. Felipe Anderson seems to be, not all there in terms of consistency and getting his head right to play the level he can play every week. Sebastian Haller still relatively unproven. I'm worried. I'm not going to lie. Just above West Ham, surviving relegation, I have Brighton. Brighton fans, I feel like me and you have got a certain relationship. I've annoyed you over the years. I've disappointed you. I'm trying to repair that. Give you the kudos you deserve for continuously outdoing my predictions, continuously overachieving in my estimations. I always have you to go down and you never do. And I think this year, being the year that I don't think you to go down, maybe you will go down, I don't know. But listen, fair play to you. Fair play to the management. Fair play to everything that's going on at Brighton right now. Not splashing the cash, but getting the job done. I think you're always going to be one of those clubs which, unless something drastic changes, every year some people will have you going down. But I owe it to you this year. I'm not having you going down. Above Brighton, I've got Crystal Palace. Now, these two were interchanging constantly in my estimations. I didn't know who to put where. Obviously, they brought in Eze. Zaha is still there, but I would not be surprised if Zaha leaves in the next few weeks. If Zaha does leave, I think it's going to be a slog of a season. However, we're rumoured to believe they're bringing in Batshuayi. In fact, by the time you've seen this video, he might have even come in on loan for his second loan spell at Crystal Palace. That's going to make a big difference. They lack a goal scorer in there. He could help them a lot. I think they're going to have another tough season. Roy Hodgson could either be the reason they stay up or he could be an early sacking again if it's not going to plan. But I've got them surviving. Above Palace, we have Sheffield United. Now, this was the big one last year, wasn't it? I had them finishing dead bottom. I mugged them off big time. They massively surpassed what anyone, I think, predicted. Not just me. No one had Sheffield United staying up, let alone getting in the top half of the table. So well done to Sheffield United, but I do think this could be second season syndrome for the Blades. I like what they're doing now. I like what they're building. I like Wilder, and they could easily finish above this. What this is this year is about damage limitation for me. I can't afford to have one of these predictions where one club is like 10 spots further either higher or lower from what I'm predicting. I'm trying to get the teams in and around the areas. It's unrealistic to think I'm going to get them dead right. But I can't get teams so dramatically wrong. It's going to cost me when I tally up the points at the end of the season for my predictions. So I'm very interested to know how you and all the other guys doing their predictions have got Sheffield United this season. I do think it's going to be tougher. Teams would have adapted to them, but I do think they're going to be safe. I'm not making the mistake of having them to go down. The setup they've got there is too good for that. I realise that now. I've learned my lesson. Above Sheffield United, I've got Newcastle. Newcastle obviously would have loved to have their new owners sorted out for this season. That's not happened, but they've done, by their standards, certainly some very good business over the last few days. Brought in some players from relegated clubs like Fraser and Wilson from Bournemouth, Lewis from Norwich, who I've been saying for a while, the three teams that went down, there's a lot of talent, particularly young talent, that could be taken, mostly from Norwich, to be fair. Still got Godfrey, still got Aarons, Cantwell. There's more moves I expect to happen out of Norwich. And Newcastle have got Lewis. Fraser could do well for them. He's obviously known he's going to be leaving Bournemouth for a long time, so it'll be interesting to see if this gives him a new lease of motivation up north for Newcastle. And Callum Wilson, we know, can score goals. They've got options now. They're not so reliant on Joelinton. I think St Maximin is going to have another strong year, probably a better year this year than he did last year. So I've got them safe. I don't think they're going to be in a relegation battle, but I don't know if they're going to kick on too much either. Above Newcastle, I've gone with Burnley. Sean Dyche, again, just like Eddie Howe was last year, you see these managers as these reliable guys that are never going to let you down. Eventually, that run will come to an end, like it did with Eddie Howe, who now finds himself jobless and his team, or his old team, in the Championship. And Sean Dyche is not short of offers or admirers. As a manager like that, when you're at a club like Burnley and Bournemouth, who only have so much potential to kick on, you've got to be really careful about when you choose to move on and what offers you take. I do think Sean Dyche needs to make sure he doesn't go one season too far with Burnley and gets out at the right time. But I think it would be a bad prediction for me to have Burnley finishing too low down the table. But I don't see him in the top half either. So I've got him around 12th spot. 11th spot was interesting for me. The top club at the bottom half, if you like. I wasn't sure who to put there. There's a few options. I've settled with Leeds. Now, this is the third promoted club, obviously. I tend to always go with one of the promoted clubs having a strong season. Last year, I got it wrong. I said it was going to be Norwich instead of Sheffield United. Clearly, I had a shocker there. This year, I'm going with Leeds. Now, there is some logic there. Whilst I don't think their squad has added enough depth to really kick on, obviously Rodrigo being the big addition, but they lost Ben White at the back, I believe in the manager. I think Bielsa is going to go one of two ways. He's going to come in and seriously impress people and push Leeds up the table, or it's going to go horribly wrong. I don't think there'll be a middle ground. I do think finishing around the 11th spot or maybe just creeping into the top half would be seen as a very successful first season for Leeds. And even though Bielsa has a history of managing teams like Argentina and huge clubs, this is a very different project he's taken on. He just spent 2 years in the Championship. Mid-table in the Prem would be decent. The thing about Bielsa is he likes to play football. He likes his team to play possession-based, good-looking stuff. And doing it in the Championship is a very different challenge to doing that in the Premier League. Teams that come up and tend to do well are teams a bit more like Sheffield United, in my opinion, set up to be robust, hard to beat. We've seen teams come up and try and play great-looking football before and impress people, but ultimately it's not worked. I'm thinking back to when Blackpool came up back in the day under Ian Holloway. They played some great stuff. Even Norwich actually last season started impressing people with the way they were trying to play, of course, in that famous victory against Man City as well. That's my worry for Leeds here. Has Bielsa got the nous to realise his team can't play the way they did in the Championship, probably, and have success in the Premier League? He hasn't added the quality enough. He still could. I know they're still looking at bringing in a few more names. So let's not write him off yet. And I'm not writing him off, clearly. I've got him mid-table. I'm just saying with Bielsa in charge, I think it's going to go one or two ways. Really decent, disaster. I don't think you'll see Leeds in like 14th place. I think it will be approaching the top half, or Bielsa will be gone before Christmas and someone else will come in, and then who knows what will happen. I've gone with 11th. Before we kick on and take a look at my top half of the table, I want to tell you more about Spreadex and how you could potentially make some money betting on football in a completely different way. Let's take a look. Right, so this is Spreadex, okay, and this is how it's different to all other types of betting. You're betting on something to happen, but the more right you are, the more money you can make. Likewise, the more wrong you are, the more money you can lose. We're going to concentrate on one particular market here, which is about Premier League points. Perfect for today's video, Premier League predictions. And we're looking at how many points we think a certain team will finish with this season. Let's take West Ham, for example. We've talked already today about how we think West Ham are going to have a tough year. Now, on Spreadex, you can either sell at 42.5, which means you think they're going to get less than 42.5 points, or you can buy at 44 points, which means you think you're going to get more than 44 points this season. We know that 40 points is around the survival number. I think they're going to have a tough year. I think they're going to potentially get less than 42.5 points. Now, if I choose to sell on that, it means I make more money the least points they get, as long as it's less than 42.5. And I choose how much money that is by how much my stake is. For example, if I put a £10 stake on to sell at 42.5, every point under 42.5 they end up getting, I get a tenner. So let's say they ended up on 32 points, which would probably be relegation. I'd make about 100 quid because there'd be 10 points less and I'd have £10 stake per point. Do you get what I mean? Equally, if I'm wrong, in this case, I think they're going to have a tough year. If they have a good year and get 52 points, I've bet £10 per point again. I'm going to lose 100 quid. So this is not for the faint-hearted, guys. This is for people that really think they know their stuff. But if you're good, the more right you are, the more money you make. I'm pretty risk-averse when it comes to betting, so I'm going to do a small one here. I'm going to put a fiver on West Ham at 42.5 to sell. So basically means every point less than that they get, I'll get a fiver. If they have a good year, it's going to cost me some money. But you know what? It's West Ham. If they have a good year, I'm happy to pay for it. So I'm selling £5 at 42.5. I've actually already put £1 on earlier, so it actually makes it to £6. Is it letting me know there? Submit request. Bosh. Done. There's some other great bets you could look at here. For me, Newcastle are going to do better than that. That could be a good one to buy, which means you think they're going to do better than 39.5 points. If City have a year like they did a few years ago where they get 100 points and you could buy at 89.5, you can make yourself a little bit of money on that one as well. I've got a special offer from you guys, thanks to the guys from Spreadex. If you click my specific link, which is in the description, and you place 3 bets on this particular market, the Premier League points market, you'll get a 4th one for free. The 4th bet, which will be the free one, will have the same stake as the lowest stake you put on those previous 3 bets. And it's a £10 maximum stake. One thing I do want to make clear with spread betting though, guys, is your losses can exceed your deposit limits. You've got to be really careful. You've got to be over 18 and you've got to gamble responsibly. If you're interested, check out my special link in the description. Let me know what you go for. I'm back in West Ham to have a stinker. Okay, let's crack on with the top half of my Premier League predictions table. Starting off with 10th spot, I have got Southampton. Now, Southampton fans, a little bit like Brighton fans, they don't like me very much at the moment. Okay, maybe I've got something against the South Coast, just like subconsciously. I rate the South Coast. It's a good coast. I'm trying to make up to it. I mugged them off for their kit. I mugged Brighton off for their kit. And I usually predict Southampton and Brighton low. I'm changing things this year. I've got Brighton higher than probably ever before for me in my predictions. And I've got Southampton in the top half. A lot of people believing Hassan Hootel. A lot of people obviously on board the Danny Ings Express. Choo-choo. They've lost Højbjerg to Tottenham. How important will that be? Time will tell. I'd be very surprised if Southampton finished above 10th. But I can see them just being safe in that mid-table spot. If I'm wrong about this one, it'll be because they've had a worse year than I think they're going to have, rather than them kicking on doing better than 10th. But we'll go with 10th for Southampton. Let me know in the comments what you think about that shout. Now in 9th, I am going with Leicester. Now Leicester had a fantastic year last year. Vardy, top goal scorer. Lots of great expansive football. Maddison impressing. Harvey Barnes didn't get talked about enough for me. And Ndidi just intercepting the ball, winning tackles, doing the ugly stuff very, very well. Soyuncu, breakout year in the post-Maguire era. But they were seriously unimpressive impressive by their standards post-lockdown. They've lost Ben Chilwell, and they're going to be coping with football on a European front as well. What will that mean this season for them? I think it's going to be a little bit harder. If I get this one wrong, I think it'll be because they finish higher than 9th. I don't think they'll be doing worse than this, but I've got them having a slightly tougher year this year, and part of the reason for that is the other teams have really kicked on, in my opinion, particularly the top 6. But let's look at 8th first. And in 8th spot, I am going with Wolves. Tough one to call this one. I'm a fan of Wolves and what they're doing and what they're trying. I really like the young lad they've brought in, Fabio Silva. Not just because he gets great in Football Manager. I actually worked with him a few months ago. Very impressive by his complete fluent English speaking at such a young age. And by all accounts, he's going to be a top tip coming out of Portugal. And we know Wolves love the Portugueses. They have lost Doherty, who's a great source, not just defensively, but going forward as well for them. And that's going to hurt. I'm looking forward to seeing if they reinvent Traore maybe as a wing back, get him a bit more football, because he didn't actually play as much as he probably should have last year. Can Jimenez keep up his goal scoring streak? I still think Wolves will be one of the best of the rest outside of the top 6 elite. And I think a lot of people have got him in 7th, but I've gone with someone else in 7th. I'm going with Everton. Now, I think Ancelotti in his first full season at the club could do well. Help them kick on. Let's be honest, 7th would be a kick on for Everton. Getting into that top 6 now is very, very tough. But James Rodriguez, what a buy that is. I don't know if he's going to hit the ground running, but I've got a feeling he will. I've got a feeling he's going to make the Premier League look easy. They've shored up the midfield. Allen and Decore in there. Loads of options in the middle now. I still think they need a little bit more out wide, maybe up front as well. They've obviously got Richarlison. Not sure where they're going to use him. But then outside of that, you're looking at Walcott, looking at Bernard, Calvert-Lewin up top, obviously. Ancelotti has turned him into a pretty decent striker, to be fair. I'm wondering if they're going to kind of really concentrate on the middle of the park. And they've still got Sigurdsson as well as James. Are they going to play those two together? I'm excited by watching Everton this year. Sounds like they might be bringing in Tomori on loan from Chelsea as well. I think that's a good shout. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Everton kick on and finish 7th. Now, it's time for the top 6. Very, very tough this year. I think the gap is closing. Okay, last 2 years it's been Man City, Liverpool, and then the rest of them. I think it's going to be different this year. I think there's been more points shared. Very tough to choose who's going to miss out on top 4 and get 6th and 5th. I could be getting these ones wrong, I think, but in 6th place, I've gone with Arsenal. Now listen, hear me out. I like what Arteta's trying to do. I like the project. I like some of the purchases. I think the defence has been revolutionised with the addition of Gabriel and Saliba. Young guys, but could be the future of their defence, and they've needed that for a long time. I still think they need a centre mid. They need a better centre mid in there. And I'm not sure what they've really got in the attacking centre mid spot unless they play Ceballos up there. But they've kept hold of Alba. They've got Pepe. They've got Willian, who could be a really nice addition. They might still lose Bellerin. But this year, I'm a bit more of a believer in the Arteta project than I was last year. I was a bit more cynical. I thought it was a little bit of hot air. But I can see it. I'm starting to believe it now. I don't think it's necessarily going to come through in the results all season long. I wouldn't be surprised to see if they win another cup competition. Maybe go deep in the Europa League. But I think they're going to miss out on top 4. As are Tottenham. This was tough, right? Given Mourinho a full season at the club, to say they're going to miss out on top 4, it's actually a braver call than people probably think it is. Because I think a lot of people are going the same way with it. But I haven't seen the investment. I haven't seen the players come in that I needed to. Doherty's great. But they already had Aurier. They had the right-sided options. They still haven't really got that cover up front for Harry Kane, who, let's be honest, is injury-prone. So I'm expecting to see a striker join Spurs. And I'd be very surprised to see them finish lower than 5th. If I'm getting this one wrong, it's because they're going to be pushing into the top 4. But I've got them outside of it for now. Sorry, Spurs fans. Moving into the top 4. Who have I got in 4th place? This was tough, and I could get this one quite wrong, but I'm going with Chelsea. Now, some people are going to think they've had the best transfer window ever, and we're going to review the transfer business in a few weeks' time when the window closes. And I agree, the purchases have been fantastic. They are building a potential era of success, not just one season there with young, talented players. Obviously, they've got Ziyech, who's a little bit older, but Havertz, Chilwell. Thiago Silva is older for sure, but he's going to shore up their defence. But then they've got Malang Sarr coming through, who's gone out on loan, but he will be a future star, I do believe that. Pulisic is a year older and a year more experienced. He finished last season so well. I'm excited. Obviously, Timo Werner is going to be a huge part of their strike force. I think they still need to offload some people as well. But for me, it's unrealistic to think they're going to kick on straight away. There's a lot of new players to gel. Okay, and as many people have said, Frank Lampard could find himself in a completely different situation to what he did last year. Instead of being no pressure, Frank, you've had no transfer window. Now, you better get some wins. Some people are saying they could challenge for the title. And I think on paper, their squad could. But I don't think it's going to be that simple. I don't think it's going to be that easy for them just to put them together and it to work overnight. but I definitely see them in the top 4, and they could be higher than 4th. But I'm going with Chelsea in 4th because it's a lot. It's a lot to take on quickly, but I'm very excited for what Frank's trying to do there. I hope he gets time to let the new players gel. In 3rd, and this one is the one I'm probably least confident about, I think I could be having a stinker here, but I've got to predict something. And I've got to have a good year this year. I've got to really think hard. And I've gone 3rd place, Liverpool. Liverpool fans are not going to be happy about that. They were so impressive last year. But it's very rare, or pretty rare these days, that we see a Premier League title retained, with a follow-up win. And I don't think Liverpool are going to do it this year. I think Man City will be hungry again. I think there's another team, obviously, I haven't mentioned yet. But more importantly, focusing on Liverpool, is the squad. Whilst it hasn't need to change, and I respect the lack of transfer business they're doing, I respect they believe in their squad, I respect they'd have to buy someone sensational to get in the first team. They've got good youth players coming through, and of course we've had a pandemic. Money might be tighter than usual. So I do respect the business, or lack thereof, but it's about hunger levels. How hungry are these guys to go out and do what they did again? Because they're going to have to be better next year because the other teams are better. The teams around them have improved, have strengthened. Chelsea particularly are going to be trying to mix things up in there. So it's not because I don't think the squad's good enough. The squad is definitely good enough to win the league. We've just seen them do it. It's about the mental side of the game. I don't know if they're going to be able to raise the levels or even sustain them to what they were. So apologies, Liverpool fans, but I've got you finishing 3rd, which means I've got 2 teams left and they're both from Manchester. The question is, who have I got winning the league this year? Manchester United or Manchester City? Let's take a look. In 2nd place, I've gone with Manchester United. Okay, they're not quite going to kick on, but this would be a hell of an achievement, wouldn't it? Tipping Liverpool after the year they just had and getting into the top 2. I'm excited. Now listen, I have not been the biggest Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fan in the past. I've said I don't believe the hype. I don't think he's got what it takes. And I'll be honest, I'm still not sure. I'm still not convinced in him as a manager. I just think he's got a great bunch of players. Some young, homegrown players, a few great additions. How much he's been a part of the additions of the likes of Fernandes and Van der Beek, etc., I'm not sure. I think there's still 1 or 2 big additions to come for Manchester United. They need to have another attacking player, I think, just to offer a little bit of backup. They've got Rashford, Martial, Greenwood, Daniel James. Outside of that, I know Gallo's still hanging about, but they need another big name. Obviously, Sancho's the one that they've been trying to get. Whether that will happen, I'm not sure. But I like what they've done in general. I like the form they were having after lockdown. It was unbelievable. In fact, most of 2020, they've been very, very good. I really like the Van der Beek addition. I know some people are wondering whether he's going to start. You've got Pogba and Fernandes. Do you need a Matic or a McTominay next to them? Or can you go Van der Beek, Pogba, and Fernandes? I mean, I tell you what, I've been watching Van der Beek over the last few years, and I've been amazed it's taken this long for someone to come for him. I thought Real Madrid should have tried to get him in their kind of rebuild, but Man United have got themselves a hell of a player. Reminds me a little bit of Wesley Sneijder back in the day. I think he's got a good goal-scoring eye. He could end up being cover for Fernandes, could play a bit deeper. But for me, I think Man United are going to add one more, at least, and I think they're going to kick on, and I think they want it. I think Maguire obviously had a bit of a tumultuous summer, but once he gets everything sorted there and everyone back going again, could lead them to something special. They've got youngsters like Brandon Williams, who's 1 year better and more experienced. Right now, as I'm filming this, they've got 2 of the best goalkeepers in the league. I'd argue Henderson a lot better than De Gea these days, competing for number 1 spot. I think they should be backing Henderson. I've said this for a while now. But I'm excited for Man United. This one could be a little bit off, but I wanted to mix it up a little bit this year. So I've gone with United in 2nd, which means, of course, I have Man City to win the league and to go back to what they did so impressively a few seasons ago. Centre-back was an area they needed to strengthen. They've done that with Ake coming in. I think they're going to be bringing in at least one more centre-back as well. I think we'll see someone leave in that position as well. Ferran Torres is going to be exciting. I'm not sure whether he'll hit the ground running right away, but I believe in the hype from what I've seen of him, which is limited, I'll admit. From what I've read of him, though, from experts, it sounds like City have got themselves a hell of a player there from Valencia. Obviously, there was a little bit of rumours for a while that Messi might come. That didn't work out. And I think that's going to be good for players like Mahrez, players like Bernardo Silva, who would have definitely seen their playing time reduced if Messi had come in. But one player we're going to see a lot more of this year is Phil Foden. I'm excited for that, especially as an England fan. No more David Silva. That is a big loss. That is a big loss. He wasn't at the height of his powers anymore, but he was still instrumental for them. So that's a big gap to fill. Leroy Sané gone as well, but that is where Ferran Torres can come in. Big year for Aguero, potentially a last year for Aguero at Man City, but I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to want this title more than last year when they were just trying to keep it. It's so different when you don't have it anymore. You cannot underestimate that hunger level, but they've got a load of people in that team that know how to win things. For me, much more than the last few years, any of the top four could win the league. Last few years, I've been saying, listen, it's City or Liverpool, and obviously everyone's been saying the same. I would not count out the fact that Chelsea or Man United could win the league this year. I think it's still unlikely, and I think my shout of United in second is, I kind of weirdly think United are less likely to win the league than Liverpool. I think Liverpool are more likely to get first than Man United, but I also think Liverpool can end up finishing third, and I see Man United in that area. Could be way off with these ones. Let me know what you think in the comments below as ever. Obviously, I will react to these predictions at the end of the seasons. You guys usually enjoy laughing at me when it comes to that time of year. But I'm hoping I can just improve on last year. Maybe have my best year yet in terms of getting teams as close as possible to where they actually finish. Feel free to leave your predictions in the comments below. Drop a like on the video if you're enjoying it and let me know what other videos you'd like to see soon. Very happy to see the Premier League season back. Do not forget to check out Spreadex. All the links you need are in the description. There's also info about that special offer you can get involved in. If you think you know your football and you like a bit of a bet and you're old enough to do so and you're going to bet responsibly, I thoroughly recommend checking out Spreadex. Subscribe for more, and until next time, don't go changing.